Welcome to episode number 8 of the Phil and Will Show. We are here, and last week, Will didn't bum everybody out, hopefully, with his Sora talk and AI was just going to take over the world or something. That got dark this week. I think it's going to be fun in the sun. We're talking college football playoff. We're talking Deal or No Deal Island. We're going to be giving a little preview of that, considering they dropped pretty much 25 minutes of the show back in January, which is pretty incredible that they did so much. We'll be talking about those two things. I mean, maybe even dive into the fact that we acknowledge that the Amazing Race cast was announced. Remember, the Amazing Casuals used to be a thing a long time ago. They announced the cast today. I don't know if there's any part of you in any way that realized that happened, but it did.
No, I mean, why would that even matter? Especially because we've given the Amazing Race a shot. I've watched one season of it when we did do the Amazing Casuals, and I don't know. There's nothing for me in that show. I'm sorry. There's just nothing there.
Yeah, I feel you.
There's nothing to podcast about. I get that. I'm not saying it's a bad show that people shouldn't want to watch it. I think they go to some amazing places. There's some really fun gags. I think the casts are often good. There's some suspense in the race, but there's not much to chew on, strategically or show format wise, or breaking it down. I think we even struggled to have that great of a podcast when we did look at it. So no, I'm not.
We're struggling. I mean,
I'm not wanting to focus any of my attention towards the Amazing Race, and we do have a new show, Deal or No Deal Island. So I mean, that and this one feels a little bit more up our alley, up our we've done the Trust, we've done the Traders, obviously we do Survivor. So I think Deal or No Deal Island fits the specialist vibe. And obviously we're gonna talk about some college football here, which I'm actually very excited to talk about.
And that definitely fits the Will vibe and the Phil vibe. So that's good too. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Deal or No Deal Island later in this. I know McKenna and Celestina, for our patrons, had been doing the Amazing Race recaps. They've been doing it on Patreon. We might bring that over to the regular channel. I don't know. Will is obviously not going to be a part of the Amazing Race at this point, in case you can't tell. He has no interest in doing that, but we still might bring that over to the main channel and get something going with the Amazing Race. Maybe. I don't know. Because I do kind of agree with you. There's not much to chew on, and you get ripped for trying to come up with strategy and stuff for the traders, and you just get absolutely decimated in the comments. So
look, my traders takes have been spot on. I was the one saying that Dan was going to go after Phaedra before he goes after Parvati, and everyone ripped on me in the comments. And then literally the next episode, Dan goes after Phaedra and not Parvati. And it was yeah, guys, look, that's why I'm a specialist over here.
Yeah.
I don't care if I don't remember Kate from season 1. At least I can watch the show and pay attention and figure out what's going to happen. So
yeah, it's been a rough go for poor. I feel like we're both getting ripped, but I feel like it's so much of it is just directed at Will. He's just a filthy casual.
I don't know why. It's just I didn't pay attention much to the first season, and I guess that does make it hard for me to claim I'm a specialist. But I think we're doing a great job covering the traders. I think we're breaking down the episodes very well, and then we are looking at, it's such a new show and it's such a different format, and there are so many issues with it that I think we have really fun conversations. At least to me, I feel like it's very interesting to think about how something works in a show like this. How could you make it better? How could you fix it? What would you change? Instead of just recapping and breaking down what we just watched, have these bigger conversations. Obviously we like to do a lot of predictions and have some foresight too towards the end of the podcast, but I don't know. I feel like we're doing a great job with that. And Deal or No Deal Island, we'll do probably the same thing. It's a first season show. What's working? What's not working? How do we fix it? I think that is kind of a really fun topic. And that's not too far off from the college football discussion that we're going to have here on the Phil and Will Show, because college football playoff system, how do you fix it? How do you make it best? What's working? What's not working? It's very similar. I know one's a TV show and one's a sport, but these are competition formats, essentially. They aren't that far away from each other. So I'm excited to get into both of these topics today.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really good point of how they're both competition style, because even when you get something that's been around as long as college football has, it still feels broken, and they're trying to find a way to fix it. And I feel like what's funny when we talk about the traders is the diehard traders fans right now don't want to have the discussion about what's wrong with the show. They want to have the discussion about what's working with the show and what's exciting and all of that. And I get that. Look, if I'm a fan of something, the last thing I want to do is hear people sit down and nitpick it. But I think the way
I don't know.
I think the way you get to something great is by acknowledging what the flaws are and trying to figure out how to solve those issues. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that with college football playoff and Deal or No Deal Island. What do you want to start with? I feel like we've set ourselves up to start with Deal or No Deal Island, but then I feel like we want to start with college football.
I think we start with college football. I mean, we've got some big news out of the CFP, and that's its like own separate entity from all the conferences and from the NCAA. It's another acronym here that I think is here to stay, and I don't know how long the NCAA is going to be involved. I did hear or read something recently that the NCAA is going to kind of move out of football, but not completely. Like they will still have like oversight on some aspects, but that the conferences are going to, the conferences have had so much power for years now, but I think it's starting to happen in a more official, formal manner.
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like that's the best thing that can happen to college football is the NCAA needs to step out, because the NCAA needs to figure out just how they're going to continue to govern all of this stuff. I mean, working in college athletics as much as I have, you really see the inner workings. And I worked at the last school I worked at did not have football. The previous school that I worked at in California, they were Division III, but they had football, and they actually hosted football playoff games, but they don't have scholarships at the Division III level, so it doesn't really matter as much. But when you work at a school that doesn't have football and you're seeing all the changes that are affecting football and are being put in place for football, you start to see what's going on with these other sports and how much the football changes don't work for the other sports. It's absolutely insane. It just is not touchable. And honestly, the football changes that are happening at the upper levels don't work for the other 300 universities that have college football. Like it's all these things are great for the top 60 teams in the nation. Every team below that, it's an absolute disaster. So yeah, Brendan in the Now says, reminder to show some love and like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Go ahead.
Yes. Wow. We didn't even have to bring it up. Yeah, we were on with Peridium on Monday night, or was that last night?
No, it was 2 nights ago now.
That was 2 nights ago. And we asked him, he's built such a huge YouTube channel, like 155,000 subscribers. And, what do you do? Can you give us some tips, Peridium? And he goes, you got to just ask people to like and subscribe. So thank you for reminding us of that. We still haven't taken his advice that we required a comment
I will say this
in the chat to pique our memory there.
40% of our listeners aren't subscribed.
That's pretty good though. I feel like most people are always like 80% of my listeners or viewers or yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Obviously if you're watching, definitely subscribe. I know we have a lot of people on the audio side too, so come over to YouTube and subscribe. But yes, football needs its own governing body that doesn't affect all the other sports. I mean, the best example of this is clearly just conference realignment as we've seen it. I mean, the fact that the Pac-12 no longer exists for like track and field or swimming or water polo, or as they call them, or at least I don't know if you guys call them out west. We call them the Olympic sports, basically, not the TV sports. So you have the TV sports.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like a kind of a local thing. Because as growing up close to Stanford and being a Stanford fan, it's like Stanford gets like the most championships in Olympic sports and like a ton of Olympic medals too. So I wasn't sure. That might have been local. But yes, there's no reason why someone at Cal or Stanford who's a swimmer should fly to Miami to have a swim meet. Like there's no need for that. And the fact that football is dictating all of that is just absurd. And I do think we are obviously in this huge transitional period, and that these changes are coming quick. They're coming fast. I do believe that we will settle into something that works for everybody eventually. It will take probably 10 to 20 years. a lot of money moving around. A lot of people need to get their paws on everything. But football's going to split off, and then I don't know if the Pac-12 will ever get, reinvigorated or come back. I mean, we still have 2 members in the Pac-12,
Yeah.
and they probably know, hey, we should retain the brand and the rights to this, because at some point football's going to branch off, and then we can get the gang back together. Let's play baseball even. I mean, I know we talk about football and basketball and TV sports. Like baseball would lean actually more towards the other sports. I mean, that would kind of be on the fence, because obviously College World Series is big and that's televised. But your other Olympic sports, get the gang back together.
Let me say this to you right now. Football makes a lot of money, right? At pretty much every university that has football, they're going to make money on football. Even if they're a terrible team, they're going to make money on football.
It funds their athletic departments.
It funds
every other sport.
This is what I'm going to say to you right now. College basketball, there's probably 50 teams in the entire nation that turn a profit on college basketball. I'm guessing on that.
That's volleyball, what they say.
No, but here's the thing. You get into these other sports. Yes, they're getting students to come to their university, so you're making money in that way. But if you're looking at just like how much money is this actually making me any money, no other college athletic sport makes universities money. It might, we got that kid to come play here that wasn't going to play here, that's great, but they don't make money for the universities, because you have to think about all the money that goes into the travel, the coaches, the staff around it, the trainers, the equipment, all of that stuff. It's impossible to turn a profit because there's literally no revenue coming in from this stuff. So it's all donors and that. So when you get donors and stuff involved, it makes sense. But the point of this is, football's great for Miami to play Stanford and Miami to play Cal, because we're getting to see 2 programs that have been around forever that do. I don't know if Stanford has a national championship. They do, right?
I imagine like one of the early ones. Maybe not.
Okay, but
I wouldn't be surprised if it was no.
Maybe not, but okay. But either way, it's like this West Coast really big following, East Coast really big following, even if they're not as good as they used to be. You get that. It makes sense. Stanford's volleyball team, women's volleyball team, is like the best in the nation almost every year. And then you have Miami's women's volleyball team, which is pretty good. But those teams going across the country to play each other, that is losing the university thousands of dollars.
It's just the cost. It's
insane.
Yeah.
It's insane, because you're not, no matter how good your volleyball team is, you might sell out rivalry games and stuff, but when Stanford goes to play at Miami, I will tell you with 100% certainty, there's not going to be over 600 people at that game. There's not. So that's where I think what's going to end up happening here, Will, is we are going to have this whole debacle of the last 3 years where everything got realigned, everything changed, everything moved around. And I think what's going to ultimately end up happening is, within the next 10 years, you're going to see, even in football, conferences start to look more similar to how they looked going into this year. I think you're going to start to see teams wanting to play against each other that are a little bit more local. And I think that we're going to start to see that soon. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, I feel like we still need to figure out like what this entity is going to become. And I do think it's just going to be like, and it's going to be NFL minor leagues. It's NFL light. That's where we're going. Mm-hmm. And I know people hear that and it's like, oh, damn, I love college football. I don't need a second NFL. But I mean, even today's news was like, okay, 12-team playoff. Now we might look to expand to 14. It's like, what did the NFL just do like 3 years ago? It went from 12 to 14 teams. Like, need to figure that all out. I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC need to figure out their roles in all this with, what's going to happen to the ACC and the Big 12. But I think the important thing is to, like, it doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to suck, because football is going to break off. It's going to be a separate thing. Again, I don't know what's going on with the conferences, but we still need to maintain what makes college football different. And as much as we're saying, okay, we're probably going to get down to like 60 teams, probably somewhere in there, 50 to 60, and they're going to form like this league. Mm-hmm. What can we do to still hold what we love about college football? How do we make that happen? So I was thinking, Phil, what we could do, And I know we want to talk about the 12 team and the 14 team and like how
And
that's
here's
all
Adam
going to
Elsie. I
work.
saw a headline earlier already talking about 16 teams in 2025.
Yeah, I think they said the earliest it would be is 2026. And that actually might be the 2025 season, but the games wouldn't be till 2026 because it's played in January. Actually, I think they're gonna have to play in December when they do.
They will
expand.
have to start playing in December.
Yeah, so maybe that's 26, 27. I think they have to do this for at least 2 seasons on the current deal that they made. But yeah, I mean, it's already we haven't even played a 12 team playoff yet, and now we are talking about expanding it. So again, NFL.
And a lot of this conversation is coming because the Pac-12 dissolved, because it was originally supposed to be a 6+6. You were going to get the Power 5 champions plus the highest champion from another conference, and then 6 at-large teams. Well, because the Pac-12 essentially dissolved, now they're just doing the top 4 conference teams get in, 4 conference champions get in, and then the 5th team is going to be the next highest conference team. So the Pac-12, which has essentially dissolved, could still get that if whoever's still playing out
it's
there.
highest ranked conference champion, right?
It's the 5 highest ranked conference champions.
Okay, so let's break down this version of it before we have, because I do want to have a bigger conversation about what the sport is going to look like and how do we like maintain what college football is, even as we move into this really unknown era of the sport. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Phil, just initially on like the 12 team playoff? I mean, we haven't been doing this podcast that long, so we really don't even know our initial thoughts on what this is going to be and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, so for me, I've always been a fan of expanding. I'm not a college football purist. I grew up not caring about college football at all. You grow up in New Jersey, there's really no good college football teams around you, so you don't care. My parents didn't go, my dad didn't even go to college. My mom went to college at a small New Jersey school. So we didn't have rooting interests involved in all of this. So I didn't care. And I'm a big believer of play the games. What happened this year with Florida State and Alabama and even Georgia not making it is an atrocity. It's such a disaster and I hate it. And I understand. And let me get my point in because I can tell you're already like chomping at the bit because I know you love this. But I think that the whole thing of this is the only sport where every game matters. Well, for Florida State, they stepped on the field. They won every single game. Every game didn't matter because they won every single game. So I think that's a pointless, that's bullshit marketing that doesn't work anymore because of whatever they've done, because of the college football playoff, essentially. So if you're going to have a playoff and you're not just going to have the bowl games do whatever, you need to make the playoff more inclusive. You can't just have it be the same 4 teams every year or the same 3 teams and one random one gets in. You got to make it different. I like how they've set this up where the 4 conference champions who are the highest ranked don't have to play a game initially. So they're going to be playing, if you're the 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed, you are playing 1 game more than what you were playing in this new format. I'm okay with that. If you're the 5 through 12, anybody wants to argue, oh, well, the 5 through 12, now they have to play 4 games. Okay, would they rather play 4 games for a shot at the national championship, or would they rather not have a shot at the national championship? That's their choice. I actually think this is a good format. I also love in this format that Notre Dame gets absolutely decimated by it because they can never get one of the top 4 seeds. And that is official, and that is a real thing. They can't get one of the top 4 seeds because they're not in a conference right now. So they will always, at best, get the 5, no matter how good they are. So I love that. I also like the idea of playing home football games. College football has the best atmosphere of any sport. And you take that away when it comes to bowl games and shit. And when you get into these bowl games, it is the shittiest atmosphere ever. It's so bad because nobody travels to these games. Half of them are being played in really cold or really expensive places far away from where the teams play. So a lot of people don't go. Putting some home games during this is absolutely phenomenal. Imagine this year, the 5 seed of Florida State playing whoever they had to play, or the 6 seed of Georgia. Georgia gets a home game. Sure, Georgia's going to beat the daylights out of whoever the 11 seed is, but so what? They still have a chance to play for the national championship. We're getting to watch a home playoff game for Georgia. So I'm a huge fan of it. I think that what's going to happen, though, is they're going to go overboard because we are a society, and especially with football, it is all run by money. As it is said here by Adam Elsie, it is just all run by money. And eventually they're going to say, okay, well, maybe we can do 24 games and we'll just shorten the regular season. And if they start shortening the regular season, it's already at the point where you're playing 11 games or 10 games or 12 games, whatever it is. If they shorten that to 9 or 8 or something like that, how are you even determining in those 8 or 9 games who the best teams are to make this 24, 32, however many team bracket? So I don't know, man. I think that they're getting into dangerous territory. And it reminds me of the NBA doing their in-season tournament this year, where it's like, was that really a success? Why did we throw that in? It feels like that's where college football is starting to drift. If they go beyond this 12 really quickly, what are we doing?
Yeah, I think the way the 12-team format is set up is very well done. If you are going to expand and you're going to expand to 12, I think this is the best way to do it. I don't necessarily think expanding is the right answer, and I think I might have brought this up on one of our first ones, but like to me, the best solution to the college football playoff situation was to do a regular bowl season. Like, don't even have any playoff. Let everyone go play their bowl games, and you would match up. Always the top 10 teams would match up in the New Year's Day bowls and in New Year's Eve, and that whole like 3 or 4 days period would be like your top teams playing, and those games would matter, especially before we had a playoff or even a national championship game. It would be like just play those games, and the AP poll is just going to rank whoever is number one, and they're going to win a national championship. And usually heading into those games would be like, oh, the Fiesta Bowl this year has like the 1 versus the 3, and like that's gonna whoever wins that's gonna be a national champion. So like, yes, they did kind of had national championship stakes in games, but it just wasn't called that. And I was just like, hey, play bowl season, then pick your top 4 teams. Now that you've seen teams at the end of the season, and then do literally 3 more games, just add that on. Because then you're getting to see, then you keep bowl season alive, which I know we've talked about, but like we've lost the whole tradition and importance and meaning of like a really unique part of the sport that separated it from every other sport that's ever existed. So I think for one, that sucks. And then going to 12 with this, I think there's this just big misunderstanding of how this thing is going to go and how it's going to work. And I think you've even said it. It's like, okay, 12 teams are in, it allows more access for more teams, which is technically true. Like there are more teams that have a shot at winning the national title. But I think what it does, yes, here we go. Nate Will, a great last name. That's your name. Mm-hmm. What it does is it gives your perennial playoff contending teams that you mentioned that it was the same 3 or 4 teams, or maybe it's like 6 teams, right? We could probably name the 6 or 7 main teams that got into the playoffs. Pretty much Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma. Then Michigan.
And Michigan started, yeah.
Kind of right at the tail end got in there, but like that was what, 6 or 7 schools?
Mm-hmm.
You are now making it easier for these powerhouse blue chip teams to just come in and lose 2 games, lose 3 games, and still get like an 11 or 12. And you're just leaving the door open for mistakes. And you're then those teams, the ones that have the most 5-star, 4-star recruits, are going to have all this time to figure it out and put together a winning season and win a championship. And so, yeah, the path is longer now that you have 4 games to play for some of these schools. So yeah, they're in, but they're not going to win 4 games against these schools that have more talent than them.
Go ahead. This is a really great point by Nate Will, and it's adding on to what you're saying. If a larger playoff only makes it harder for the underdogs to win a title, and the thing is, it gets them in, so it gets them the notoriety, right? It's why when a team wins the SWAC championship in college basketball, they go nuts, and they're going to go get a 16 seed playing game and get their doors blown off maybe by the other 16 seed they play. It doesn't even matter. Like, it's why they still go crazy though, because it gets the school the notoriety, gets them a little bit of money. But I just want to point this out to everybody who's listening to this, and I'm gonna read this fast, but I think that this is really integral to the conversation. March Madness is, in my opinion, the best sporting event there is, and probably that there ever will be. It's just so exciting. The bracket, everything that goes with that is just exhilarating. You love the upsets, you love the underdogs, right? I'm just gonna start reading off the last champions, okay? Because I need this to be understood, because March Madness is chaos. Anything can happen. Last year was UConn. Now I'm just going to read them in order. So last year was UConn.
They were a 5 seed, but they're valued 5 seed.
But at the same time, they're an AAC team, is what I'm saying. Is like, so just listen to the names of the schools. Don't think about what seed they were. Just listen to the names of these schools. That's the point I'm getting at.
Okay.
UConn, Kansas, Baylor, Virginia, Villanova, North Carolina, Villanova, Duke, UConn, Louisville, Kentucky, Connecticut, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Florida, North Carolina, Connecticut, Syracuse, Maryland, Duke, Michigan State, Connecticut, Kentucky, Arizona, Kentucky, UCLA, Arkansas in 1994. Weird name, but still SEC school, right? North Carolina, Duke, 1990, UNLV. UNLV is 1990 the last time that one of these powerhouse college basketball teams didn't win. You could argue that was UConn, but
I would
UConn
say
was
Arkansas.
Playing.
No, UConn's a basketball blue blood pretty much.
Well, they became a blue blood because of the 90s.
Right, but I think Arkansas would be your first one where you're like, huh? Arkansas?
And guess what, though? And they're still an SEC school. So I guess what the point I'm getting at here is, even in March Madness, where there's such chaos, you're still getting an iteration. Even when you watch the upsets of, oh my God, Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue last year. Okay, and UConn still won the national championship. Like, who cares? The team never generally wins. So while this will be more exciting to maybe watch these teams get in and play the games, it's not really going to solve the problem of Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, and Clemson, and Ohio State, and Michigan, because those teams are still going to get there. They're still going to be playing. It's just now we're going to get to see 5 or 6 other teams play as well. But ultimately, when we get down to the Final Four, it's probably going to be an iteration of those 7 teams every time.
But I do still think there are other consequences. And one is what I've said. It's like, you let Alabama get in with 2 losses, or like, let's look at Georgia last season, back-to-back national championship. And now we're moving back to football. I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
And Georgia goes down in the SEC championship with 1 loss to Alabama. That team is getting the 5 or 6 seed, and they very likely three-peat, if they make it in. And now that SEC championship game that was so major, that was basically Alabama, if you win, you're in the playoff. Georgia, if you win, you're in the playoff. And if either of those teams lose, you're out. How big of a game? Not only are you playing for a conference championship, you are playing for a playoff berth and a shot at the national title. And this kind of trickles down now to the whole entire regular season. It's just not the conference championship games. It's that those games just become less important now that we have 12 spots, now that you can lose 2 or 3 times to get in. I mean, you have to look down. You're going to have a 3-loss playoff team pretty much right away in the 12-team playoff. So we have here real Nicolas Cage. The real Nicolas Cage. I'm a Penn State fan too. Can't wait for them to lose to Michigan, Ohio State, but make the playoffs. And that's a great example. But like, wouldn't Penn State rather have the 14 playoff and all it takes is one magical season where you beat Michigan State and Ohio State? And I know the divisions are going to get mixed up now that we have the West Coast schools joining. But like, let's say you beat Ohio State on the road, huge win, and you go 11-1 or 12-0. This is your magical season. Wouldn't you rather have the 14 playoff in that case? Because then you only have to win 1 game to get to the national championship, and you've likely eliminated Ohio State from the playoff. Now, in this system, Ohio State sitting at 1 or 2 losses is now like a 7 or 8 seed. And guess what? Now you got to go beat them again when you had your magical run and everything fell right. You got the pick 6, you got the turnover, like you got the magic in the bottle. And then you got to go through that team that has more 5 stars, more 4 stars, higher paid coaching staff, more TV money, bigger brand, all of that. You got to go beat them twice. That's what you want as a Penn State fan? I'm challenging you right here, real Nicolas Cage, because that's what's going to happen. And that's the false mindset that so many fans have of this. I just want to get into the playoff. You're leaving the door open for these blue bloods to get lower seeds who now can make mistakes and now can correct mistakes. And so if I'm a Penn State fan, I want the 14 playoff, and I just need 1 season to beat Michigan or Ohio State, and I'm in. And then I just got to win 2 games against 3 other schools that have bested, they've rise to the top in their conferences. When we're looking at this nationally with so many teams, it just makes the road impossible. And I'll give you some examples. Like, I think the Cam Newton, and I know this wasn't in the playoff, the Cam Newton run by Auburn, you think that it's even Auburn, who I know is like an SEC school. They are not a college football blue blood. They have not made the college football playoff once in its existence. That team only had to play one game to win the national championship because they went undefeated and had an amazing season. That team is probably not winning a 14 playoff and definitely not winning a 12-team playoff. And you're probably going to get Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma. You're getting Clemson, like you're getting Ohio State, maybe Michigan now more recently. I know Harbaugh's gone, but you're going to get the same champion. And I think the 4-team actually gives you a higher variance champion than a 12-team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because like real Nicolas Cage says here, I'm still waiting for that magical season. If you're Penn State, you're probably stoked about the 12-team playoff because you have no chance of ever being in the 4-team playoff because you just stink.
You do though. I mean, Michigan
not with that.
Michigan
coach.
missed it for. I mean, that's on the school to get a better coach. I mean,
or
people say that about
12-team playoff.
No, but then you're making it harder on yourself. I mean, Michigan did not make the playoff until like 3 years ago, and now they have a national title, and everyone wanted Harbaugh fired. I mean, that was his 9th season. He got it done at Michigan. Yeah. Like, it takes time. And I get people want access and want to be able to do it, but you are just giving the major schools free passes. And then this is now going to transition to my next point. I think I've made my case of how I think it's just going to help the Blue Buds, basically. The bigger, more powerful programs now have a free pass. It makes the best thing about college football to me. There's a lot of unique things about it that are different than the NFL, and we maybe can go through some of those things. But to me, the best one has always been it's their best regular season in all of sports. Every single Saturday, there are like 2 or 3 essentially playoff games. Like you can be in late September, and you got like 2 4-0 teams, or maybe one's 3-0, one's 4-0. And it's a rivalry in conference matchup. The environment's crazy. And again, we are like late September here. We're like at week 4 or week 5, if you count week 0, that, the game's in August. And it is a monumental game because if you lose, you likely can't win a conference championship or that you can't make it to the playoff. Those stakes are what makes the sport so awesome, that you will find the slate on Saturday and find across the country that there are 2 or 3 games with incredibly high stakes that you just can't get. Like the NFL, that's not the case. The Niners lost 3 games in a row this season. It didn't matter. Who cares? Got to the Super Bowl. It's fine.
But did you win the Super Bowl?
No, we don't need to rehash the Super Bowl.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That's not the point of bringing that up. Title. I'm just saying with college football, you play 12 conference games and maybe you get a 13th for a conference title, but there's not many chances to prove yourself, and they're all chances to make mistakes, and every game is so important. So that's one of the things I hope, even when we transition to NFL Lite, that is maintained, that the regular season has to matter, or this sport falls apart.
Well, let me ask you this though: you're a team like Oregon a couple years ago when they had Bo Nix, and they played Georgia week 1. They lost 43-6.
They've been playing. How did they play? I know they've been playing Auburn. They had a home and home with Auburn.
Whoever they played
to Georgia.
It was like week 0, and they played, and it was this marquee matchup, and it was Bo Nix, and they lost 43-8 or whatever it was.
49-3. That was September 3rd in the 2022 season,
and that was against Georgia, right?
Yeah,
their season was over.
It wasn't over though, because that was an out of conference game. Now, but
they're not making a playoff.
You can.
Going, not in a 4-team.
It's okay if they don't make the playoff if they were clearly already 46 points worse.
But that's also week 0. I mean, you're going to tell me teams can't get better as it goes on?
I can. I'm telling you, if that Oregon team goes 11-1 and wins the Pac-12, that they absolutely have a chance to make the playoff. Absolutely, that team has a chance to make the playoff, especially because they went on the road. They went to Athens, and it is the first week of the season. And often we see that the 4 versus 1 seeds often a blowout. So I don't think Oregon's season was over. I think they actually got to learn a lot about themselves. And that Oregon team in 22, I don't think was very good. I think they ended up losing 3 or 4 games, if I recall. Let me see. Oregon.
Well, I mean, they went 10-3. They lost to Washington and Oregon State, who were both pretty good that year.
Let's see.
I have it up.
For the 2022 season.
Junior. Yeah, they lost to Penix Jr. and then they lost to Oregon State when Oregon State
Right.
when
So,
Oregon
but I
State had
mean,
to
a
win.
3-loss team is never getting to. I mean, a 2-loss team has never made the playoffs. So, a 3-loss team was never going to get in anyway. I think if they run the table the rest of the way and Georgia's their only loss, then they still actually probably get in. So, I think your point's not valid there, but I think that's okay.
But then, okay, but if my point's not valid, then I don't think your point of every game is so monumental and important is valid either, because then that first game. So either way, this
Right.
is
Well,
a
that's
losing argument because then that first game doesn't matter.
No, but I was talking about like basically conference play and like having a shot to win your conference, and that is so huge, and all the local rivalries and tradition of it. I mean, that's something else that makes college football so unique. It's just the biggest tradition and rivalries between schools that might not have a big national footprint, but like in the cities and in the towns, it's so important. And like, yeah, I'm not talking about week 1 out of conference games when I was mentioning that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that the biggest issue for college football at this point is by what they did to Florida State last year.
Oh, it's a huge issue, and I've told you,
and I think that's
the
where
system is at fault for that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so it's if you kept going the 4-team playoff route, would we have seen that happen over and over again? Where then it is a question of why did Florida State, who won the ACC championship, I don't care how down the year was for the ACC, who beat LSU in week 1, who had the Heisman Trophy winner, goes undefeated and doesn't get in. And it's like, okay, so now you are telling me that you are the only sport in the history of anything where you can go undefeated and not play for a national championship. That's stupid. And that's the problem with college football. So you can say how important every game is. Well, every game is still going to be really important. They might not be as important to Alabama every single time because Alabama might be able to get away with 2 or 3 losses and still get in. But to the other teams, these other teams that were clamoring for a bigger playoff, it is still just as important to them every time. Because if Florida State had slipped up once last year, they wouldn't have even gotten into this 12-team playoff because they would have probably lost to Louisville in the championships. Now Louisville gets in.
No, I think Florida
State,
State,
their quarterback
if you pick a random loss in their schedule, they're still making the ACC title game.
No,
so
I'm saying though, if they lost the ACC championship game, if they went undefeated and lost the ACC championship game, so Louisville gets in. If Florida State lost that game,
I think Florida State
set up, I don't think they get in.
I think they get an at-large bid at 12-1. I think you're getting an at-large bid there.
But either way, okay. So even if they did, it's still crazy. Once that happened this year, there was that precedent set.
But it is crazy. I mean, literally, it's in one scenario we have them losing and they get in the playoff, and then another scenario they go undefeated and miss the playoffs. So, like, to me, neither of those are good options. Which is it's just kind of.
But that's where we're at right now.
It's kind of like making both our points for us, and that's why I think it's difficult for me. The 14 playoff was never the right answer because you had 5 power conferences, so there was always going to be a year where you had the 5 conference championships and you look at all 5 of them and say, hey, we can't really not give one of these schools a chance. Like, that would be really dumb and unfair. So I don't know how the 5 conferences got on board to ratify this in the first place and didn't do, 6. Let's get our 5 conference champions, and then let's get one group of 5 or like the one at large bid, and then hey, group of 5, you can fuck off essentially.
Yeah,
I don't know why they didn't do it that way just from the start. Again, I'm not like a huge defender of the 4-team. I'm more of like people that are so in favor of the 12-team. I just don't think they fully realize what its consequences will be, not only for the playoff itself and the ultimate national championship, but what it could mean for some of these like middling regular season games just don't have as much importance. But obviously I'm going to watch the games. I'm going to bet on all the games. It's going to be fun. But
Will bet on all 7,000.
I still think, and there's probably no way to do it, I think we're too far gone, and people love the one and done. I think that was what they wanted out of a playoff, the whole March Madness thing, that, win in advance, lose and go home. Like, that's such a big part of it. I still think you could get that, but to me, it's like, do a big bowl season then do your teams. That's like, to
Yeah.
me, the absolute way to save the tradition of this sport. But I mean, that's never going to happen, I don't think.
Yeah, but what do you know?
Unfortunate.
Yeah, the one thing, I think they're going to go to 16 way too quickly, but I think the nice thing about 12 is the 4 conference champions are being rewarded. And you know what? Like, those other teams just be happy to be there. So, and Adam Elzy says this thing here, no matter what, there's going to be controversy. In a 14 playoff, the 5th team was screwed. In a 12-team playoff, the 13th is screwed. I don't feel bad for the 13th place team. I feel bad for the 5th place team.
When you say that, now.
No, but it's the same thing when they do March Madness. I don't care. Like, if you're a team that's on the bubble there, congratulations if you're one of those teams like Dayton,
but when
or
10-3,
run,
when 10-3 Alabama gets in over 11-1 Tulane, people aren't going to be happy, man.
They're not going to be happy, but at the same time, Tulane should have went undefeated and won their conference. You have an in now. As Tulane, you have an in. So take advantage of your in. The rules have been set for you. If you're Tulane and you go undefeated, the odds are you're going to get into the playoff now. So the rules have been set. If you lose a game, you shouldn't have lost that game. But what pissed me off this year was Florida State didn't lose a game. And they got punished for it by finding a way to win. That's insane. So I don't care about their team.
Again, my ideal is just it's not.
Maybe college football should just shut down.
No, we can't have that. I just hope we don't lose. We're going to NFL light, and it's just we got to maintain. And we do. I know you don't like it. You have to maintain some sort of subjectivity or ranking, because it is what drives the conversation of the sport and why people are passionate about it, and it's fun to talk about. And having some subjective ranking might not be the most fair, but like, I don't want the NFL where you just look at the standings and have a bunch of tiebreakers. And like, I don't want that. I want to have these silly conversations because it's fun. All
right. Should we talk about Deal or No Deal Island?
Sure. I think also at some point too, a future Phil and Will show topic is we got to fix the MLB playoffs, because as bad as the college football playoffs,
MLB playoffs, you know how they
are broken.
The just go back to what they were.
Yeah, no, MLB playoffs are abysmally bad in terms of how they are formatted.
Yeah. All this stuff.
Really,
the analytics really matter. Also, the 7th place teams just faced each other in the
Also, we're going to play 3 games only for some of these. It's like,
after 162 game season, if you win a 2 out of 3 series, you advance.
It's insane. Yeah, we should break that down. I think we can get into that on the show. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I won't just
we'll talk. MLB season starts soon, so we can talk about that when we get there. But let's talk about Deal or No Deal Island, because
so I watched the 25-minute, 22-minute preview like a while ago, and now I actually don't remember. I remember it, but I don't remember it super, super closely. And I'm actually wondering if you can kind of just fill me in. I know we had our intros and the Jeeps, and then there was the find the cases in the mud. But tell me kind of just overall, and if anyone who hasn't seen it, this isn't the whole episode, kind of give an overview to remind me and to just, let our listeners know what's up.
Yeah, so Deal or No Deal Island, I wasn't sure how this was going to work. And when you said they released a 20-minute clip, I said, why would they do that? You're releasing half your first episode. But then when I watched it, I said, I didn't think this show was going to work. And then I watched this clip and I said, this is going to work. I really enjoy this concept. So essentially what it is everybody is getting a briefcase. And if you have the lowest number and somebody else has the $1 million briefcase, they get to make 2 of you go in to compete like head to head or something. And somebody ends up having to face off against the dealer in a regular game of Deal or No Deal. How will they get eliminated? We don't really know that off the bat. But what I found really interesting about this first episode was we talk about the traders. How are they going to do the challenges? How are the challenges going to make sense? When I watched the Deal or No Deal Island traders thing, our challenge aspect of it, I said, wow, they really found a way to make this work. And what's happening is everybody is running through competing to get a case. They have 2 red cases. One of them is a steal and one of them is a really low amount of money. The problem is if you have one of the 2 lowest amounts of money, the person with the highest amount gets to pick which one of you is up for elimination. So by going for one of those red ones, you could either steal a really high value, or you can end up getting screwed and having a low value. But you also, in this competition, have people competing to try to get the highest value. You have people lying to each other about what their value is because they don't want other people to know, so that they can't be stolen from, or that people aren't looking at them to steal from. So they're telling everybody different numbers and things like that. And there actually is a reason to compete. The reason you're competing is because you want your briefcase to be high enough so that you can't be eliminated. So I don't know how it's going to work with alliances and things like that, but Joe Manganiello is going to be I think he's going to be a solid host. And I like the cast they have for it. It's a bunch of different kind of people. And they did find a way to make it physical. I said, how is Deal or No Deal Island going to work? And I watched this and I said, I kind of see how this is going to work now. I'm actually really excited for this show.
Yeah, for me, just conceptually, the name and the billboard and it's Deal or No Deal Island, I didn't need much like convincing to be like, I understand what the show is going for and what it's going to be. I think, watching it answers a lot of questions and fills some holes, but you can see how this show got made. Let's take pre-existing IP of a hit show, Deal or No Deal, that was a massive, massive hit. We're going to bring it back on the air because it has been off air forever. And we're going to do a reality competition version of a studio game show. So let's go to an island. Let's create this story. It's the Banker's Island, who's already a character in the Deal or No Deal lore, if you will. And so I get all that. I get how it got made. And then to see it, it's funny. You were like praising the show for... We're losing Phil's video here. I'm going to keep talking.
Happened.
But you are praising the show for having the challenges have meaning, where it's like, yeah, but it's almost like that's what they're supposed to do. Like that shouldn't be the benchmark for a good show. And I'm not saying I didn't like this or that it doesn't work, but it's just so funny because we are so heavily invested in the traders that we're going from a show that literally the challenge has very little meaning for the audience watching. And I've explained, hey, like at least Survivor, you might not like everything they do, but hey, someone's going to win immunity and they are advancing to the next round. And that's huge. The stakes are high. And here, like you just said, you fully get it. There's all these briefcases around, which again, Deal or No Deal prop, shiny studio floor game show. Like that's their prop. Bring that, put that on an island. It's muddy. It's in the river. It all to me actually makes a lot of sense. And you see how this came together. And that, yeah, you got to get a great briefcase. And then the elimination to me is like the biggest question mark right now. Like, how is that going to work? I think
how do you lose against the Banker?
You do need a moment where it's Deal or No Deal. You say yes or no, and then someone goes home. Like that's what you need to have it, to be made. So yeah. I don't know if we want to talk about that. I don't know if there's anything else you picked up on. I don't know if we need to break down the cast. I mean, we haven't seen a full episode.
We don't need to talk about the cast because for me, the only one that I recognized.
But for me, it's like there's a clear story here. Like the Banker's private island, he's got $200 million, in quotes. But I get it. I get what this show's doing. I'm curious to see where it goes. It's it's going to be a very network kind of campy show. There is some levity. They're leaning into like kind of the joke of it that, that's the Banker and the sexy briefcases and all that. So I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, the eliminations are the part that I'm the most confused about as well, because they say you're going to face off against the Banker in a regular game of Deal or No Deal and like try to stave off elimination, but I don't know how you get eliminated. I don't know how you stave off elimination. I don't know if everybody on this show can end up walking out with money. Like, can everybody end up walking out and saying, oh, I took the deal from the Banker and now I get $300,000? Like, I don't understand exactly how that works.
That's a good question, I think, of like, are the deals going to be for real money, or is it just, I'm kind of getting the vibe that it's a head-to-head competition. Like, so if you and I are the two people up for elimination, we go each play a private game of Deal or No Deal, essentially, and maybe we've been able to gather some information on the briefcases available throughout the game or throughout that episode. And I go play Deal or No Deal. I've got my deal made. I have my number. and then Phil goes, and whoever has the higher dollar amount is the one who stays. I could easily see that, and maybe some people might be thinking, well, man, like 2 people going to play Deal or No Deal as the elimination, that's going to fit into an episode. You could play Deal or No Deal in like 60 seconds if you really want. You really wanted to. I know the entire show was a hour-long program essentially, and they just built everything up. They had all the models, they had the phone booth, they had the music and the suspense. And they did a great job with that show. Obviously, it was a huge hit, but you can speed through, I think, and you can cut this together. So that's where my head's going.
From what my understanding is, though, is that both of the lowest people aren't doing it. It's just the person, like in this episode, the example was whoever has the $1 million case chooses between the 2 people who plays Deal or No Deal. So they're not both playing, which is what's really confusing to me because I don't understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Maybe that'll happen somewhere down the line, but it's not going to happen right off the bat.
Well, to me, that seems odd because the way Deal or No Deal works as a game, if you aren't familiar or if you need a reminder, is that you're opening suitcases to reveal prizes that you don't have. So you have a personal suitcase, and every suitcase you open, like if you open the $1 million case, your case doesn't have $1 million, and then the offer from the dealer is going to be lower. So basically, it's a game of luck, essentially, where you want to open as many cases that show you low numbers, like the $1 or the 1 cent or the $100 case, and you want to keep those really high valued cases in the running so that your offer is going to be higher.
And then you get out before you start to unveil some of those higher ones, because then that's when it becomes bad for you.
Yeah, it's a game of greed, and I know it's not trust.
It's a game of greed.
But it is a game of greed where it's like, okay, I see the $500,000 case, the $250,000 case, and the $1 million case are all still unopened, and I'm getting a deal of like $80,000, and then I go open 3 cases. Those are those 3 cases. Now my offer is like $6,000. I'm like, damn, I really should have taken that that $80,000 offer. So that's the point of the game, is pushing your luck and greed. I don't know how you do that in this scenario, especially if you're not going head to head against somebody else, because greed can work when you have an opponent. Like if you and me go both play Deal or No Deal, I know I need to get the highest score. At what point am I like, this is high enough? Or do I need him to like open one more case to see if I can get a higher deal? But there's only one more high number case out there. If I open that one and miss, I'm going to crumble all the way down. So that makes sense if it's head to head. If it's not, then it's like, okay, the show has to like provide a benchmark. You need to at least get a deal of, let's say, $35,000. But then at that point, there is no greed. There is no pushing your luck, because you know the number that you need to clear. So
you know what I think is going to happen?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think that the game is going to be, if your case has more money than the offer you accept from the dealer, you're out. And if your case has less money than the offer you accept, oh, that's true. But the value of a different value, though. Maybe
the value of your own case, at least from what we saw in the first challenge. Everyone does have a case, so I think you're right there. You will take your case into Deal or No Deal with you when you play the game, but yeah, I mean, then the benchmark. Okay, like if I have a $20,000 case, I'm just waiting for a deal to be. Yeah, you have to have the mystery, and so I guess for this game to work, you need to have a mystery case with you. So maybe that's Phil. You could be right. That just feels like if I get, an offer for $320,000 and I end up having the $500,000 case, like, really, I'm going home. Like, that doesn't feel fair.
Yeah.
I know. How am I supposed to, like, you're not, like, it is a game of luck.
Especially if you're the guy with the $1 million, but then again, if you have $1 million, you can't go up into the challenge at that point, because
you're the maybe that case. Okay, so maybe that is part of the format, how they kind of gamed it. But like if you have because Phil, we're saying you get a new case at the start. So you could have the $1 million.
Oh, so you could.
Right. Your case, you can't take if you know the value of your case, you can't actually.
Yeah, but what
play
I'm
the game
saying is, if
of
you're the
Deal or
guy
No
with the
Deal.
$1 million case, you're not going and playing the game anyway. So it doesn't matter. Even if they don't make that change, you're not going and playing the game anyway because you have $1 million case. Like, so you're not going to be one of the 2 lowest numbers that could possibly go up for it.
Right, but I think this only works if you get a new case.
Yeah. I don't know how the elimination gonna work because, like, as I was watching it and Boston Rob is making his alliance with Aaron, the accountant kid, you're saying, okay, it actually does make sense why alliances are key in this game, because if you're one of the 2 lowest people and the person with the highest case says, oh, I don't want to send Boston Rob in, that's good for you. So you do want to have people looking out for you and stuff like that. However, I'm still trying to figure out, like, eliminations. That's
Yeah,
the part
that's
of the thing
fine.
that
We
makes
don't
no sense.
know. Obviously, there will be a game of no deal or no deal
Great.
involved, but there clearly is going to be like social dynamic strategy. Like, we haven't really seen where they're living yet. Are we going to get like reality of them
Mhm.
in a camp or in a mansion, or does everyone live in a camp and then you get invited to like the dealer's mansion for a reward? I mean, who knows? Is there a sanctuary where good things happen? There's
Maybe.
a lot of unknowns about the show, but the marriage of the briefcases and the banker and then making the deal, putting that on an island and making it physical and having, rigging teams with ropes course and mud and sand and swimming, that all to me is like adding up very well here. And I think that's probably
Yeah.
the most important part because we're not really breaking down an episode. We haven't seen the full thing.
Yeah. And when you said to me, do you want to do Neil? Like, you had said, oh, Deal or No Deal Island's coming out. Boston Rob's going to be on it. Maybe we should do that. And then I was like, that sounds stupid. I don't know. I actually think this could be a hit. I'm not lying. And it's on
could be
Peacock,
fun.
and Peacock's killing it with the traders. This could be a surprise hit. And I'm actually very
House
excited
of
about it.
Villains just dropped on Peacock on Monday. So
Yeah,
if you're
they're kind of
someone who
becoming the
has,
hub of this stuff.
if you have Peacock and haven't watched House of Villains yet, like then they got House of Villains, the Traders, and Deal or No Deal Island. I mean, I know CBS obviously has Survivor and Amazing Race and Big Brother, which is pretty tough to go against, especially now they have the challenge too.
Yeah.
But they could be like the DreamWorks to Disney's Pixar. Like that's very possible.
It is.
They could get Kung Fu Panda going. They could get Shrek going. It might not be Toy Story or Finding Nemo, but I don't know.
I mean,
Okay,
Shrek is like the
I'll
one that
stop.
can compete with all those, right?
I know. I'll stop with the DreamWorks to Pixar comparison here.
I like
But
that your DreamWorks and Pixar movies, though. Well, that's a big step for you, bud.
Why wouldn't I? I love those movies.
I don't know, man. You don't know a lot of stuff about a lot of movies, so that was good to know.
I mean, How to Train Your Dragon, incredible series. Incredible
Hey, they're getting a whole land at Epic Universe and Universal Studios coming out.
Oh, yeah. I see those. To me, I love those movies. Those
movies are great.
Coco, to me, I know now I'm going to Pixar. So good. Like one of the most underrated movies probably ever.
Yeah.
I gotta be a guest on your movie podcast at some point. I want to talk. There's some movies I want to talk to you about. Or we do a Phil and Will special where we break down some movies or something. Who knows?
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out. You have anything else you want to say? So Deal or No Deal Island's gonna be on Monday nights. What are we doing? Are we recapping it Monday nights? You think it's gonna be like a play-by-ear kind of thing, but we're gonna do every episode? What do you think?
I mean, look, we're right in the middle of Survivor preseason. Survivor's going to start, and then that's 2 episodes a week. Survivor on the main channel, in addition to everything happening over at Patreon. Plus, the Traders is still airing. Plus, we're doing Phil and Will show. So, I mean, it might be tough to be like, hey, every Monday at this exact time, right when the episode ends. But I think we'll be able to like squeeze in some Deal or No Deal Island coverage, especially if it proves to be a good show that people are watching, that people want coverage on. Not sure if that's going to be the case. I mean, we could do a Deal or No Deal episode 1 recap and have like 6 views on it. Like that's very possible. So
are we trying to do this Monday night though, with it being the premiere, or what do you think?
It also, yeah, I think we'll attempt it. I know we're both, busy. This isn't like we don't podcast full time, although sometimes it kind of feels like we do.
Kind of feels like we've been, huh?
No, and then maybe, hey, if it's like a 15-minute, 20-minute, let's touch on Deal or No Deal Island every week on the Phil and Will show. That I think is like that probably okay too if we have to
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
I mean, look at this episode. We talked for college football for like 45 minutes and then, or 40 minutes, and then we did like a 15 to 20 on Deal or No Deal Island. That to me is like, wow, that's a great
Unless
podcast
unless
conversation.
Deal or No Deal Island actually ends up having a lot to talk about.
Maybe it takes off and it's a great, yeah. Then we say, all right, we got to dedicate 45 minutes to an hour each week talking about Boston Rob.
Yeah, I'm about it. I will be watching it Monday night. I will be watching it Monday night. So hopefully we're able to get a recap in on Monday night. And if not, we'll get something in next week. But if we were able to get a separate recap for this, that would be fun just to be like, hey, this is a show. Let's see. Because if the eliminations make sense, I'm in.
Wouldn't that be so crazy for this show to like, oh, the challenges have this really cool mechanism where you have to find your own case and you don't want the lowest case and you have to do harder things for the hardest case. And like, we get it. Awesome. And then the eliminations are just like, what? That makes no sense.
Of the
it's the opposite of the traders, where like the traders, we understand how you get eliminated. The round table is probably the best part of each episode, super intense. You also got people getting murdered. We had a poisoning this season. Like the eliminations are always very good in the traders, but the challenges make no sense. So hopefully we're not running into that.
We'll see. We're gonna find out Monday night. But anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We're going to be doing the traders tomorrow night after the episode, but it'll be a little bit later because I can't watch till late because I'm working some games and who knows? We'll figure it out, but it'll be on before midnight tomorrow night. And then Will and I will be doing our fantasy draft on Sunday, I believe is what we landed on. So we'll be doing our fantasy draft, which is our final Survivor preseason bit of content. So that'll be good. If you haven't liked this video yet and you made it to an hour and 1 minute, please like it, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And check out some of our other stuff. Hope you enjoyed this conversation and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
We got to get